Hi, I am Rick Bonney, Director Emeritus of the Public Engagement and Science Program at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. This presentation is part of a 10-module training program on developing and implementing citizen science projects for which scientists collaborate with members of the public to address real-world problems. The goal for this program is to introduce fundamental concepts of citizen science in U.S. federal land management agencies, which often use citizen science to manage resources and to engage the public in agency missions. This program was developed by several partners, including staff from the U.S. Forest Service, the National Park Service, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the Bureau of Land Management, and Schoodic Institute at Acadia National Park. This is the second module in our 10-module series. Module 1 provided an overview of citizen science, its scope, breadth, and impacts. The goal of this module is to help you determine when citizen science can be an appropriate tool for achieving scientific and resource management objectives for parks, forests, grasslands, refuges, or similar lands or waters, and it fits within our 10-part series here. 3 takeaways for this module are that citizen science works best when first, your needs for data are greater than what your staff can collect or manage. Second, your project goals are clear and easy to understand. And third, your project can be accomplished with simple and enjoyable protocols for participants to follow. We assume that you have come to this module with specific scientific questions or management needs that you wish to address. Perhaps you want to assess patterns in space or time of one or more ecosystem components. For example, is a particular species present in an area? How many individuals of that species are present? These types of assessments likely require monitoring. Or perhaps you want to assess ecosystem functions. For example, is local runoff causing stream pollution? This type of assessment would likely require a process study. Or you might want to gather information about hard-to-find species or the impacts of crises such as earthquakes or oil spills, which would likely require observational studies. All these types of studies are possible with citizen science, but citizen science might not always be the most appropriate method to meet your needs. If your objectives fall into one of the following 3 categories, you're probably on the right track. Citizen science may be a good tool for you if you need more or different data than you can collect with staff scientists. A major strength of citizen science is its ability to collect information across broad areas and over long periods of time, because the number of potential volunteers typically exceeds the number of available staff professionals, including researchers, faculty, and students. Many eyes or ears can help to detect environmental change, such as population declines, incidences of pollution, and the introduction and spread of invasive species. In some cases, volunteers have access to data that government employees do not, such as observations or measurements on private lands near parks or refuges, or information related to individual activities such as hunting or fishing. In addition, when a lot of data are needed quickly, for example, after a large-scale die-off of birds or fish, entire communities of volunteers sometimes can be mobilized to document the cause and scale of the disaster and to determine what areas are in most need of mitigation. For example, many citizen science projects rely on the huge numbers of individuals who enjoy keeping track of the birds they see in their yards and neighborhoods or on their travels. One project made possible because of the birder throng is desert abacaching. Run by the Bureau of Land Management and several partners, this project is essentially a game that encourages birders to collect data about migrant birds from rarely visited locations in the Mojave and Sonoran deserts, where information about bird populations is typically not captured. Because of the large number of birders who enjoy traveling in a birding challenge, in just one season, 72 volunteers submitted 409 surveys from 53 different locations, representing more than 16,000 birds of 102 different species. The data inform management and mitigation planning regarding alternative energy development in Southern and Eastern California. Citizen science also may be a good tool when you have a need to organize or analyze a quantity of data or images, and that need is larger than your staff alone can handle. When properly managed, volunteers can organize and analyze huge amounts of data, particularly when the data are available online. For example, citizen science participants have sorted and analyzed millions of satellite images and photos from webcams. With proper training and guidance, volunteers also can identify specimens and assess population attributes such as species abundance and distribution. In some cases, highly trained volunteers, such as retired professionals, may be able to contribute to higher-level data analysis. An example of a data organization and analysis project is Fishery, run by the South Atlantic Fishery Management Council. For this project, volunteers examined historic photos of dockside fish catches taken prior to the 1990s to classify and document the species and lengths of fish caught during that time period. The data helped to explore whether the past decades have shown changes in overall catch composition or in the seasonality of catches, to see whether the sizes of fish caught over time have changed. This information can be used to inform fisheries stock assessments. While anyone can tag fishery photos, data verification is performed by experienced fishers and scientists who are trained to work with project data. Citizen science also can be a good tool when you want to work with a community to help its members address environmental questions or issues that are personally important to them. Sometimes scientists and managers determine that to manage resources in parks, forests, grasslands, refuges, or similar lands or waters where communities are deeply invested in local resources, they must work closely with the community. Together they can identify research needs, create data collection protocols, and analyze and disseminate research findings. Such community-based projects must be undertaken with respect for the community and for members' concerns and knowledge. Such knowledge is often called local or traditional knowledge, and it can greatly enhance the information needed for the land management agency and the community to effectively manage resources. Sometimes questions or issues arise from a community rather than from scientists or managers. In this case, a project is truly bottom-up. An example of a community-based project that originated from an indigenous community is the Tribal Nations Botanical Research Collaborative, which is a partnership among the U.S. Forest Service, several Arizona tribes, and Northern Arizona University. For this project, tribal members collect information on traditionally used plants that have cultural, medicinal, or economic values important to tribal communities. As part of project development, tribal members trained federal land managers about the cultural importance and uses of native plants, so that Forest Service staff would understand the needs of the community to use and protect the plants. Project data are used to restore and manage populations of the plants on federal lands and to enhance tribal access to them. So, to summarize, if one or more of these three categories fit your situation, first, you need or desire more or different data than you can collect with your staff. Second, you need to organize or analyze a quantity of data or images that is larger than you have the staff to handle. Or third, you want to work with a community to help its members address environmental questions or issues that are important to that community. Then citizen science may indeed be an appropriate endeavor. However, before you dive into project design, we suggest that you consider answering 6 additional screening questions. Are your project goals and objectives clear and easy to explain to potential volunteers? Some research or monitoring projects have easily explainable goals and objectives. For example, to determine the timing of plant budding in the spring, or to determine whether certain species of animals are found in a specific area. Other scientific projects have goals that are more complex. For example, to determine the species composition of an entire woodland. Projects that have clear goals and objectives that are easy to describe and that will be of interest to your potential participants are the easiest projects to design and to successfully implement. The project may involve surveillance, monitoring, or hypothesis testing, but regardless of the approach under consideration, the more straightforward the objectives, the easier it will be to design a citizen science project to meet them. The goal of the Dragonfly Mercury project, for example, is clear and easy to understand: to collect dragonfly larvae for mercury analysis in national parks. Project organizers train volunteers and lead them in collecting samples in various locations throughout the parks. The samples are then shipped to a laboratory for analysis. Land managers use the data to determine what parts of a park might be at greatest risk of contamination. This information can inform where and how to mitigate mercury risk through land management practices. Setting clear goals and measurable objectives for citizen science projects is the focus of Module 3.
Will it be easy to recruit?
Different types of data collection or data management will appeal to different groups of participants. For example, charismatic species such as wolves, bears, and large birds tend to receive more public interest than other species, including most plants. Similarly, study sites near tourist destinations and college campuses tend to receive more attention than do those in urban and industrial areas. If your project needs include specific participant knowledge, skills, and motivations, those must be matched with the individuals most likely to be recruited. For certain taxa and ecological processes, and for some biogeographic regions or geographic locations, citizen science projects may not be sustainable if large or ongoing data sets are required. However, when a community is motivated to engage with an issue, large numbers of participants may be recruited for studies that might at first appear to be of limited interest. The Mapping Lamprey Distributions in Oregon project, for which the U.S. Forest Service is a major partner, might seem at first to be a hard sell to participants. Lampreys aren't particularly cute, and they live in water where they can be hard to see. In this case, project staff focused their recruitment materials on the need for information about barriers to the migration of lampreys, which are a critical part of native ecosystems. By sending public service announcements to local media outlets, placing flyers on bulletin boards, posting on social media sites, and sending emails to partner groups, the project recruited nearly 50 volunteers over 3 years, which allowed the creation of a map of lamprey distribution using eDNA collected through water sampling. Recruiting, engaging, and retaining volunteers is the focus of Module 8.
Can the project goals be met with simple and/or enjoyable protocols?
Data collection needs must be matched to the capabilities of project participants. Many volunteers will be highly knowledgeable about your subject and will be able to follow detailed data collection protocols. Still, the protocols that you develop for your project should be as simple as possible and easily explainable to keep participants motivated. Some volunteers will be unable or unwilling to perform tasks that have multiple steps or which require sophisticated analytical instruments or large time commitments. However, the motivations and skills of volunteers may surprise you. While many projects focus on simple protocols such as weekly checklists, others have employed complex protocols with great success. Some volunteers can bring needed expertise or equipment that resource managers do not have. Volunteers in the Hoven Veep Debris Field project, which is operated by the Bureau of Land Management, conduct intensive surveys to monitor 120 cultural resources in the canyons of the Ancients National Monument in Colorado. Working under the supervision of a site steward, the participants follow transects on which they tally and document artifacts with photos. Despite the complexity of the project, 65 volunteers regularly participate 4 to 6 times per year. The large volunteer force results in part from the longevity of the program, more than 20 years, and the fact that the project leader works closely with both the Colorado Archaeological Society, which has a chapter nearby, and the Southwest Colorado Canyons Alliance. Members of both groups are avid avocational archaeologists who are eager to put their expertise to work. Developing data collection protocols is discussed in Module 6.
Will your training investment match your data expectations? Trainings differ by project goals and data needs.
Sometimes volunteers need only minimal training to follow project protocols. For example, how to make simple measurements such as tree circumference is easy to explain without extensive instruction. However, following more complex protocols, such as monitoring water quality or documenting archaeological sites, requires more support or even direct supervision. Research has shown that volunteers with proper training and guidance can accurately identify specimens to the level of species and can accurately assess important population attributes such as species abundance and distribution. Some volunteers also can develop the skills needed to use sophisticated analytical instruments. However, well-developed training materials, whether deployed in person or online, are needed to successfully implement nearly all citizen science projects because most of the volunteers will require at least basic instruction. Training also will be essential for project staff, who will need to watch over the project and in some cases ensure the safety of volunteers. A project with strong training programs is Engaging Angler Scientists, run by Trout Unlimited in collaboration with the Forest Service. To inform management of brook trout on national forest lands, volunteers conduct spawning surveys, which require them to recognize variations in spawning nests, which are called reds. To reduce observer errors owing to inexperience and the challenges of observing reds in turbid waters, project staff hold workshops for monitoring certification. In addition, many online training tools are available to volunteers, including videos, tutorials, publications, and a FAQ page. Participant training is discussed in Module 8.
Is public engagement important? Will public participation in the scientific process serve your agency's goals for public input and engagement and/or help in agency decision-making?
Federal agencies all have some form of mandate for public input and engagement. Agencies meet these mandates in many ways, from public comment periods following the release of environmental impact statements, to meetings of advisory committees that include members of the public, to town hall meetings. Some parks, forests, refuges, and grasslands feel that they have sufficient public input and engagement to make wise management decisions. Others seek more public involvement on a regular basis, or desire to have more public support for the decisions they make. Citizen science can enhance public input by directly involving members of the public in contributing or analyzing data to help inform management challenges. In some cases, volunteers may comment on a proposed action based on what they learned in a citizen science project, or they might share information within their communities, motivating others to get involved in natural resource and environmental management and policy decisions. In addition, public participation in research might aid in developing locally appropriate research questions and methods. Local or traditional knowledge can reveal complementary ways of understanding local ecology, environmental trends, and threats to species and livelihoods. When research is informed by the best available knowledge and by multiple perspectives, research questions and methods can be formulated that take into account the integrated social and scientific dimensions that managers and policymakers must address.
Are resources and staff support available? Do you have the support and funding to engage in citizen science?
Citizen science data are not free. Designing, implementing, and evaluating a citizen science project takes dedicated funding for staff and resources, as you will learn in the next few presentations. Attempting to design and implement a citizen science project without funding and support from your agency is likely to lead to frustration. Citizen science efforts can sometimes be run on a shoestring, when a park or refuge adopts an ongoing citizen science project or uses an existing citizen science platform to collect data. If you have limited resources and you want to try engaging your visitors in data collection, this is probably the best approach. Using existing resources to bring citizen science into a park, refuge, forest, or other protected land is the focus of Module 7. One other consideration is the Paperwork Reduction Act, which requires all agencies to obtain the approval of the Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs and the Office of Management and Budget before requesting the same type of information from 10 or more members of the public. Therefore, some agency staff worry that the act will make their project challenging, if not impossible, to develop and carry out. However, as shown by the many examples of projects provided in this series, many parks, forests, and refuges have successfully received clearance to implement their projects. For staff of the Department of Interior, an information collection clearance officer is available to assist in obtaining approval. So, if your project has clear goals, if you have an easy-to-implement recruitment strategy, if high-quality data can be collected with easy and enjoyable protocols, if your training investment is aligned with your data and volunteer needs, if public engagement is important, and if you have sufficient staff and resources, then your needs should align with a citizen science approach. Thank you for joining me today. The goal of this presentation has been to help you determine when citizen science can be an appropriate tool for achieving scientific and resource management objectives for parks, forests, grasslands, refuges, or similar lands or waters. We hope that you'll take away 3 key ideas. Citizen science works best when, first, your needs for data are greater than what your staff can collect or manage. Second, when your project goals are clear and easy to understand. And third, when your project can be accomplished with simple and enjoyable protocols. Module 3 guides you in setting obtainable goals and measurable objectives for your project. Other modules in this series will lead you through various aspects of project implementation, team building, and evaluation. The accompanying Citizen Science Toolkit includes resources to further guide your project design efforts. Have a great day.